So welcome everyone to the diversity and inclusion meeting. I don't think we have an agenda, so we're open to any suggestions what to do today. Last time we left off with wanting to go through and document the structure of documents, and so I can share that in the chat, and that is one of the things I'd be happy to talk about today. But if there is anything else any of you want to talk about, we can add that to the agenda.
I do just have one thing because Dawn is on and Sean is on. It's just about the panel that's going on at ChaosCon. So just, you're on a panel. Sean, you didn't know that, but you are. And Dawn,
Yeah.
did you know you're on a panel?
I did know that, yes.
Okay, so
And am I on a
my
panel at the
question
end
is-
of? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Am I on a? It looks like maybe. Am I on a panel at ChaosCon and then on another panel at the Open Source Summit to replace Nicole? This is what I'm a little bit unclear on.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you're on the ChaosCon panel.
Okay.
And that's it for the time being. So I'm going to send a link out in here right now.
Okay.
You all see that?
Yes.
Hi, Emma.
Hey there.
So Emma, I'm just sharing, I just put a link in the chat just for the panels that are coming up again at ChaosCon and Open Source Summit North America. So Dawn, do you see on that first page right there?
Yes.
Tuesday the 28th. So
Yep.
There you are. Sean, you're on that first one too.
Okay.
So the questions that I have here, so I'm moderating this. So the questions that I have here are, they're kind of just questions that I've been piling in there as they came to me. But if you go to the second page, do you see add your speaking points here? It's
Yeah.
highlighted in yellow.
I knew there was something I meant to do in this document, and I had forgotten.
There you go. So that's what that to do is. So just adding your speaking points. If there's things that you would particularly like to address if there are things that you'd particularly like to address in the panel, I'm happy to bring those up. So again, those speaking points were really just me thinking out loud. That doesn't necessarily mean those are the things we need to talk about.
Okay. Yeah, I might add a couple of things there.
Please do.
To be honest, diversity and inclusion has been sort of a piece of what I've done for a really long time. I've never been really focused on it, and since I'm not really doing a lot of work right now at a company, I don't have any specific agenda for this panel, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm happy to talk about whatever we'd like.
Fair
But
enough.
I will look at what you have so far, and if there's anything that I think's missing, I'll add that.
Please do. Please do.
Okay.
And Sean, do the same. And Emma, now that you're on, did you see that link that I sent out? You're muted. I'm going to unmute you.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it.
Okay. So this is remember the meeting we had with Nicole last week?
Yes.
So that's basically what that is what this document is. So
who's Manrique? Because he's not involved in OpenStack.
He's the head of Bitergia, isn't he?
Okay. So, yeah, so they've been doing the gender stuff, but no one from Bitergia has been involved in the diversity and inclusion stuff we've been doing lately.
Okay, so I'll just put Bitergia here.
Hasn't Daniel been involved?
Is Cuerdo?
Like I said, they've been doing the gender stuff.
Okay.
We've got a whole new diversity survey that was announced last week, and Bitergia has not been involved in that.
Okay. Yeah, I've no skin off my nose either way.
Well, just because if I'm wondering, and I'm part of the OpenStack diversity group, people in the audience who may be involved are going to wonder too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I changed it.
Okay.
And so for really any of these, Emma, you're on all three. Lucky you.
It's fine with me. Hopefully I don't run out of things to say.
You can repeat
Usually
yourself.
not the case.
Doesn't matter. Go ahead.
It'll be different audiences anyways.
What if you've got something to say, saying it 3 times is sometimes what it
It's good
takes.
practice, actually.
Yeah. So if you just want to even put it in the first one and then copy and paste, that's totally fine. And as moderator on each one of these 3 panels, I'll really just follow your lead. I mean, I'm just going to ask the questions you want me to ask. So. So anyway, please we don't have to do it right now, but please take some time and just.
Sure, I can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take some time tomorrow by morning. So you should have it by the time you get up in the morning.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Matt. So I'm gonna share my screen actually, and just to have, this is the document that we linked to from our repository, the revolving document that we keep using. And so, Emma, you joined after we discussed the agenda. Do you have something that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to talk about it, but Akshita's here, and Akshita had worked, I think she was here. Are you okay?
Yeah,
okay, I saw her. She'll probably come back. She has done a prototype of D9 metrics as they might appear in a Liturgia dashboard, like just like a very early, like, here's what this might look like, to get people thinking about that and asking questions. And so if there was some time for her to demo that, I think that would be great. That was part of her outreachy project.
I think that's a great idea. When do you want to do that? This week? Next time?
If we have space, that's up to you if there's room or time. And then Akshita, if you're prepared, I guess I'll just let you both decide.
Yeah,
she can.
I can, and I have dropped the link in chat because the posted link is closed, so I have uploaded all the data to GitHub.
Oh, the tables. Yeah. Oh no. We started moving a few tables, but we're getting longer tasks.
Oh, awesome.
So we will have, and that'll add more. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So you can walk us through that.
In that room now.
Yeah.
It's going to take it all the way up to 5 seconds. And then in that cube room, there's going to be.
You want to do this now?
3.
I wasn't sure.
Oh, no. I just wanted to add it to the agenda. Unless Akshita has it. Are you okay to be at that place in the agenda, Akshita?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, we're all good. I just forgot to add it. Thank you for
How
asking.
much time do you want so you can make sure to give you time?
Yeah, today I came because of the student campus.
Akshita, how much time do you want?
I guess 5 to 10 minutes will be okay.
And we can plan on doing that at the end of the meeting. I will have to leave early, so I'll miss it, but it's recorded, so I'll go back and look at it later. So then we can talk about the structure of documents in our repository, which we talked about last time, and I put pen to paper and wrote it out. And I shared the link with you all in the chat and in the document, in our agenda document. And I also share my screen, so you should be able to see it. If not, let me know. So I start the document with a background of why this document exists, which I think is always a good idea to go about what we are trying to accomplish. And then when I talk about the structure of resources, I mentioned the goal, question, metrics approach. And I put in this graph here where we have each layer and then different set of pages within each layer. And it shows how the links between these different pages are. So at the high level, we have the goals. And in diversity inclusion, we have 7 goals. We have the communication, contribution, events, governance, leadership, project place, and recognition. And then each of those get their own goal page where we outline here what is the question. We then give it a so for each goal, we have multiple questions and a short description of what the question is. And then from those questions, we link to the research pages that provide the description of what this question, what it can answer. The sample objectives is why someone would choose to use this question in their diversity and inclusion report. Sample strategies is an overview of methods. And then we have the sample success metrics that are the how to do it. How do you actually go about collecting the metrics? And the last section is the resource section. And this is what we prototyped out a couple of weeks ago with the documentation page. And then from there, one step deeper is the metrics detail page, which is a very metric-centric page, not so much user, but implementation oriented. So that is the structure that we talked about and that we can now discuss and see if this makes sense to you all.
So I'm going to still go through, I have this on my to-do list to look through more thoroughly. I just want to say that it's really excellent, and I really appreciate your time putting this together, and I think it's going to take us to a good place where we have a standard that we can build more quickly and validate against. But I need to, it's on my to-do list to give you better feedback. I apologize that I haven't done that yet.
Okay, no problem. Any immediate thoughts from anyone just looking through this?
So Georg, my question for you is does this stay a document like this, or is this moving into a GitHub repository somehow? Is this like a think out loud document, or where does this live?
This will ultimately live in our repository, and we can, if the metrics committee so chooses, be merged back there as well. What we've found here in the D&I work group is that prototyping pages is much better and more collaborative in Google Docs. And so we first develop it here in the Google Doc for feedback and editing, and then we'll move it over to the repository.
So is this like a README file? I mean, is this what it would ultimately be? It's kind of describing the structure of the repo, or describing the structure of the information that's in the repo? Is that what this is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think the README would be a good place for this to live.
Okay. So then I have another question while I'm asking questions. So you have level 1, which is the goals. And if I was to think about how that would map to a repository, I'm guessing there would be something like a communication.md or a contribution.md or an events.md. Is that right? Starting at that level?
Yes, and the communication.md is actually already level 2,
Okay.
where that document itself is the goal page.
But that would move up to the level 1?
Well, the level 1 is the overview of what goals we have. So that's basically our README that says here are all the goal pages that we have.
Okay,
Or,
so then,
alternative way to think of it is level 1 is the diversity inclusion page that we have in the metrics committee, from where we link out to the sub goals from the metrics committee level, which are the goals inside the D&I group.
okay.
I get a lot of challenge because goals and what was the other word we always used?
Well, categories. Yeah, I call them, in the metric side, I call them categories. So the GMD category, the BNI category.
How about calling it a category goals?
So, and then within the communication, goal, then there are questions that are you're aiming to answer, right?
Yes, correct.
And then against each question, there are resources that are recommended to address that question. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So in this case, you would have your top level would be communication. You may end up having 5 questions associated with that. Just making up a number. And then each question would have some process, some metrics and processes by which it's implemented. All right?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the example that we always go through is we have the project places. That's the goal.
Yep.
This is the goal page. And then when we go to documentation, this is the resource page or the question page where we provide the resources.
So go back one. So the goal here is project places. So I'm going to look at the, okay, so that's on your Google Doc, that's number 6. All right, so project places, and then you come here, and then there's one goal identified so far for project places, but there may be other goals identified, or is there only one goal for project places? Is it always 1-to-1, or what might it be?
Right now, we only have one goal in each of these goal pages, and
okay.
The name of this goal is project places.
Well, you have the level 2 on your Google Doc is called goal page. And so that's this.
Yes, this is the goal page.
And so should, right under project places where it says goal : identify how diverse, should that be question :
I think the questions are in the table.
Okay, well, the only question mark, I guess I see a few question marks.
Yes.
So how about this? Might project places have more than one goal? Or is that the goal? When we say the goal page, Like that's the goal of project places?
I don't have the ultimate answer to that. I always assume that we have one goal, but I don't know. Maybe anyone can chime in if they have an opinion.
It may be, if it feels like there's more than one goal, then maybe we need to challenge ourselves to ask if then there's maybe actually, we need to break it into two, whichever level this is, like the goal metric, that there's two goal metrics here, or three instead of one. I think having one guiding, like OKR or whatever we want to call that feels important.
Okay. So,
but I could be wrong. That's just my instinct that if we're starting to have multiple goals and we're trying to align, now we're trying to align everything with multiple goals, it just gets harder that way.
If we try to align multiple things with multiple goals?
Yeah, because then we have if you're looking at project places, there's documentation, and now we have to make sure the documentation, cares or goals align with each of the project place goals. And it just, I think that for fluid sanity, and it also helps the narrative and communication of this work too. We want people to understand it more easily.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I think this is what I'm trying. I totally agree. This is what I'm trying to understand the levels, because I think if we get too many levels down and too many goals, if there's too many things for a user to map, they just bail. They just have attrition and leave.
It's maybe a good goal to pick one of the easiest ones of these and create it as an example.
Mm-hmm.
And then from Georg's document, it would be like a guide for how you create each level.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Because we're kind of these aren't right yet. So
yeah, and I think also that would help people visualize it and see where the real holes are once we have a kind of a working example of what one of these would look like.
So can I continue I'll continue my line of questioning, because I think, so right now Project Places has a single goal, and it's possible that there are more than one goals, but that might be complexity. So for this goal, there is ways to inform that goal, which is through documentation, through issue tracking, response times, panels, and sentiment. Is that right? Yes, I see. Okay. So if I go back to the document, those rows are they're the links to the resource pages?
Correct.
Okay. So then if you click on documentation, that's how you understand this resource.
This page provides is the resource.
Okay.
In the way that I think of it, we want to provide step-by-step instructions on how to build out the metrics, and that is what goes into this section 4.
Okay.
The success metrics. So what tools do you use? What number do you arrive at? How do you report the number or visualize it?
Okay. And it's possible that this resource could be used, obviously, in other goals.
Correct.
Okay.
And this from here is where we link out to the metric detail pages.
Okay.
Which is the implementation for tooling.
Okay. I'll be quiet for a while if anybody has other questions.
So maybe more questions, as Don said earlier, will arise in once we try to actually use the guideline to create more pages. And I think that is what we want to do at the open source summit during the hackathon.
Is kind of do what Don was suggesting, kind of build one out.
Yep.
Okay.
And Emma was also
To be fair, I think Emma suggested doing an example,
Okay.
and I just reiterated it, so I'm not. I will take credit for Emma's awesome idea. I was reinforcing her idea.
I think that would be a good use of time coming together.
So, okay, one of the things that seems to be a recurring problem is the terms like goal, objective, question, category. And I don't know how to remedy that. It just seems to be like I confuse myself when I talk about, excuse me, about goals versus questions versus
categories. Yeah. And I just chose one terminology in writing this document, and I don't claim that to be the right way to do it either.
Do you think it's just a matter of staying consistent in the wording that we all use and slowly a language will develop?
From what I've heard so far, there's no pushback on using the terms. We just have to be consistent. So yes.
Okay. Okie doke.
So for prototyping out one goal and resource pages during Open Source Summit, we have a hackathon space or table for chaos at the Open Source Summit. So the day after ChaosCon, where we can get together. I don't know where it's located right now, but I know that we should have one. I don't know if we want to set a time aside and schedule it ahead of time, or if we just want to spontaneously decide during ChaosCon when to meet or how to organize it.
Well, if you schedule it, let me know, because I'm not arriving until Tuesday, so I'm going to miss ChaosCon.
Okay, I think we'll for sure send it out to the mailing list, because the hackathon is intended for Chaos members to dive deep, whereas ChaosCon is the where we go broad and we encompass, invite everyone. The hackathon is meant to really get our hands dirty and produce or work on our documents. So then I proposed that during ChaosCon we just talk to each other and figure out what time works on Tuesday, because plans change, and
Sure.
I haven't built out my conference. I haven't looked at all the sessions yet where I want to go. Maybe at ChaosCon it'll be a step closer and we can align our schedules better.
Yeah, that would be good. I have my children with me on this trip, so planning ahead is really appreciated.
Also, you do want to plan ahead?
Even if it's just like the morning, if we can agree on something. I mean, I'll still try and make it, but that's a wild card for me sometime in this trip.
Okay. Sounds good. So Tuesday we'll plan on when to meet on Wednesday.
Sure.
So the hope of the hackathon is to hone in on one of the level 1 goals, perhaps project places. And you could tell me if I'm wrong, but to hone in on one of them, to articulate the goal page, if it's one goal or 2 goals, maybe just one, and then assign the resources on that goal page, and then build out those resource pages. Is that right?
That's what I understood we wanted to do. Okay.
And it doesn't have to be all the resource pages. I mean, if we just did project places and then documentation, like just drilled down on one, I think that would be enough.
Okay.
That would still be a win. That as long as we can go do one all the way down, I think that would be feel successful to me. I don't know.
Cool.
Others.
So I have about 4 more minutes before I need to head out. Is there anything else where there's questions for me? Anything else I can do right now?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, the document is, I send it out. You can all look at it and comment on it before we get together next week. Or we just work on it next week. And then if there's nothing else on this for now, then we can hand it over to Akshita for the demo. And I'll stop sharing my screen.
So I am looking at Akshita's the screenshots.
Akshita, do you want to share your screen and go through that? What would make sense?
I can. Actually, anyone can share the screen because it's on GitHub. So I can share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I see it.
So for this project, this was a project I did during my outreach internship, and I with my mentor Emma six aligned six quantitative metrics, which was basically in chaos, previously worked out with chaos, and then I drafted a graphical view of them. And if I start one by one, first is governance. Governance is a bit difficult because every project has each type of has different way to measure governance. So this first governance statistic shows if how many repos are having code of conduct or having reporting file, or how many have actually code of conduct linked with them. And then we have code of conduct violations, how many repositories are not following code of conduct or not able to, like if you're not following code of conduct, then you are not you can't be considered as a good open source project or an organization because you're not helping each other to grow. And then further we have module ownership diversity, and then governance, mailing list discussion, and then we have board diversity. Board diversity can be of different types like reps and council. So that is based on different types of which board diversity we are looking at. And then if we go, and then we will go to leadership. Leadership roles, we have two types of leadership role here, informal and formal. I have categorized them firstly basis on the age, and then on the basis of gender, and then on the basis of area, because in every organization we have a different mindset of peoples, so I have tried to categorize on the basis of that. And then we have contributions, which firstly, this is just a general view of how we are able to contribute on GitHub or any organization. For example, if any organization wants to self-evaluate their project, so this is the way they can see how many issues are being hosted on their projects, or how many issues have been, how many commits have they have followed up in XYZ month. And then we have contribution type statistics. This is this I have classified basis on the basis of which category contribution is being made. For example, is it in coding category, or teaching category, or documentation, and then on the basis of region, because in every organization we have different types of people working together. And then what are the contributions over time? Is this graph is showing which community is growing with the time, or which community is not growing, and we can help that community come up and motivate them to make more contributions. And then we have project place. Project place is I think is important, because it shows how we are maintaining our projects, how we are maintaining our repositories, and how we are maintaining our mailing list and all. Firstly, there's a general overview of documentations, how documentations are accessible, how we are categorizing them upon wiki updates and articles. And then we have comment sentiment. This is based upon the issues raised upon the project and how we are commenting on that. Is it positive or negative, or how is it? And then how a maintainer is keeping the project updated. Like if a project is not regularly updated, or not regularly commented back to the contributors, so people will tend to lose their interest in that. And the organizations will also not able to evaluate if a project is going smooth or not. And then we have different type of tasks, like for example, there are I have categorized into 3: beginner, intermediate, and experienced. And this helps us to show which tasks are in which how many type of tasks we are having, and if we are having less number of intermediate tasks, we can have a look on that. And then how we are maintaining diversity and inclusion in events. Are we are displaying code of conduct, or we are not? And how we are maintaining the speakers diversity. Firstly, first session shows the speaker statistics, how many speakers are from which community, and then how many attendees are attending from which community. And then this is a detailed description of the speaker statistics and attendee statistics. And then we have availability of accessibilities, like which accessibility is available in which region. For example, mother room is available in India, and quiet room are available in Africa. So we can see to which accessibility is lacking in which area, and try to maintain that in every event. So this was my Outreachy project, and I think and I want this project to be enabled in every repository, so that each organization and each contributor can see and self-evaluate their projects and see if we are going on a right track or not. does anybody has any doubts or any questions, please ask.
Hey, this is Daniel. Sorry for the delay in turning into the meeting. So this is great, Axita. So thank you very much for your work. Yes, perhaps a recommendation I see is that if we are willing the people to use this this platform and the way we are measuring things, what do you think if we add? So in Kibana you can easily add markdown fields, so we can perhaps link some of the metrics that you are using in each of the sections to the specific section that we have in the GitHub where we have the documentation. What do you think?
Yes, this is basically I have prepared this on Kibana only, but the link which I have used for hosting is now expired. That's why that was free hosting. So this can be easily linked to Kibana and used. This is just for the demo purpose. I have uploaded it on GitHub. We can easily use this.
Oh yeah, but
I have the whole data set and all.
Oh, sorry, I meant the other way. So from this Kibana, so basically, I guess that you are producing the panels, and then if someone is running and installing this, they will see the same panels, right? So what I mean is that you can add, in this case, as you were the one producing this, so you can add a markdown as a new widget in each of the areas of the panel, and then, for instance, in the contributions section, you can say, okay, we are measuring this, and this means these things, and this information is basically in this chaos URL. So, for instance, here in the contributions, we can add there on the top right side of the 4 or 5 widgets you have there, just a markdown with a link with the documentation. So then people can understand and say, what do I mean by issues, or what do I mean by commits, or by contributions, or something else. I don't know if it makes sense to you. What do you think?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for your work.
And I mean, for us, this was really good just to get people talking about things like, there's probably a million questions like, what is informal leadership, and there's a whole bunch of things to unpack here. But for us, it was a chance to say, things like, well, what do you think that is, right? And in your project, what are those roles that you support with resources or time, and what are those roles that people kind of work their way to, but aren't supported in those ways. So these are as much conversation starters as anything. I just want to
I totally agree with you. So basically, why should I be measuring leadership, for instance?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
So in Mozilla, we have the Mozilla Reps program, and we have a tech speakers program, but we recognize there's leadership in Rust. There's the core moderation team. They do all the CPG stuff, and those are more formal roles. But there's maintainers and just people doing mentorship. And how can we? I don't even know how to track some of that yet, but this is the first step, I think, to trying to.
Yeah. So, well, thank you, Axit and Emma, for working on this.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is really great work. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. This is really great.
Actually, she is great, and Outreachy is great. I can't. Every time I work with Outreachy, it's like, wow. So. Thanks, Akshita.
Yeah, I do. I have a question on just a few of them. So if I just say pick events.
Yes.
How is that data from Kibana?
No, actually it is half created and half open data set.
So it's half created by you, you went out and manually.
No, I used a Python script.
Okay. Because I think partly too, it's going to be really important to let people know how this information is captured, because some of it can come from the trace data, and other has to come. There's just so many different alternate routes as to how the data can end up in here. So that was just one of my thoughts. I think it's important for chaos overall that we can clearly articulate how the data is collected appropriately. what are the methods and processes by which this can get done, and by which it's repeatable for other people.
Yes.
Well, what we're hoping to do with this is we're designing a mock-up for what our community analytics dashboard can look like, and we're going to pick one that feels like the most doable, like we know where the data sources might come from, and we're just going to put one in there. So I'll let you know how that goes.
So
and,
one meaning like events or project place or
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe it's maintainer responsiveness or like something that feels valuable to the projects we're working with, but I think where the data comes from is super important to document. Most of this is dummy data.
Okay. Yeah, where it comes from and then how you went and got it.
Yes. Yes, I understand that, because for me to collect data was a little bit tedious task, so I actually created a dummy data set for this mockup. We can use data from GitHub and all, but that would take a little more time.
Okay, because I do think some of the data and the techniques behind it are inherently going to be more expensive than other data.
Yes.
So for example, if you're actually trying to understand D&I at an event, some of the data may have to be collected on site, maybe, I don't know. A very expensive set of data.
Yeah.
Like GitHub data.
That type of data is not open source, so that would take a time.
Well, again, thanks for doing this. Great. And I guess, Emma, do you know when you're going to start doing that stuff at Mozilla, when you might hone in on one of them?
Probably at the end of this quarter, which is end of September.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that. That'd be cool.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, just getting to something that is there will be great. I'll be happy to share.
Cool. Okay. Any other questions for Akshita? I'll kind of go from here. Just, I guess, maybe one last thing. Or how about this? Does anybody have anything they'd like to bring up in this meeting so far? Don, Daniel, John, Emma, y'all good?
I'm good.
Amy. All right, cool.
I actually do have one question, sorry, related to mailing lists.
Yeah.
I want to be able to talk to this group without like triggering bigger conversations in the chaos community or at least until I'm maybe ready. Like
Sure.
I posed that question about like maybe we could do this events thing, and then it became like a larger defensive conversation about the work itself. So like because we do the prefix right now, and I understand that's for visibility, and I'll just leave that at that. I don't think we can come, but I'm wondering what like a more just working group. And I know we always email each other sometimes, but then we sometimes leave a few people off by mistake. And so what is the better way of communicating with just the group until we have formed thoughts sometimes that are ready for the bigger conversation?
So my perception here, and this is just my perception, is that having these bi-weekly meetings is a good point to share with all of the people that are really interested in this. It's true that perhaps in the mailing list, sometimes we have these long threads, which I don't think they are, this is a bad thing. Well, perhaps bad is not the right word here, but it's a good thing to have discussions there, right? So even if we have those discussions in the mailing list that we have perhaps one each month, having these sessions, bi-weekly sessions, is the real work here. So I don't know. So you are proposing to have a smaller working group perhaps for communicating?
No, I just want to sometimes just communicate with this group, like half-baked ideas, for example, right? Like, that don't trigger like larger conversations. And I think that thread that I'm in where like I mentioned the Linux, like the diversity of the feature panel was.
Why are you trying to destroy open source, Emma?
I was born for this.
Yeah.
And I felt bad because in the Linux people were like, but we're trying. I'm like, well, I'm not saying that. I was just more talking to my working group about how we, I just want to talk to my work.
Part of the process.
And then, but it wasn't ready for the bigger.
So I think that's a good idea. And the way I would phrase it is that in the bigger community, we're looking to communicate ideas that are likely more completely developed. But within a working group, we do a lot of sketching, brainstorming, putting ideas out there to explore and push against. And I think when they go to the general mailing list, they come across as a decision or a position. And in fact, They're usually not. They're usually like sketches, like you're drawing on a whiteboard. Here's my idea. And so I think that's what you're looking for is what is the venue for that brainstorming?
I could I can have another list made, no problem.
If others agree, I just really felt this week that I had to invest a lot of energy around a sketch is a good way of putting it when I really didn't,
That wasn't how you plan to spend your time.
No, I mean, we already use up a lot of fuel in the D&I discussion, so trying to save my fuel or whatever would be a good way in that. I don't know how others
the list made.
Well, that's particularly true because a lot of people don't have the same context, so they haven't been in these meetings. They don't know what we're working on.
Yeah,
and it makes for difficult conversations for sure.
Yeah, and when people don't have all the information, fear, uncertainty, and doubt kind of tend to percolate to the top.
Correct. Thanks. That's all I had to say.
Well, why don't if you had a desired name for the list, right now we're gonna have chaos at lists.linuxfoundation.org, but that's just gonna be the main one.
Maybe the same as our repo name. I don't know about that.
I think you have. Isn't there one, or was that just an addition to the list?
They're tags. We don't have one.
So that list doesn't exist. It's just a tag.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So everyone sees it. You can filter if you want, but it looks like not everyone's filtering.
No.
No, I don't filter on the tag. The tag is I filter on the actual list it comes from. So
me too.
Having a different list would tamp down the noise.
I mean, what about just chaos DNI?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll put the request in and get it made, and then you can decide if you want to use it. You'll at least
Thanks a lot.
Yep, sure. And then I guess while we're here, Emma, you had mentioned something to bring to the board. We are going to have a board meeting on Thursday or something like that. Do you want to follow through?
Let me think through that a little more. I was just kind of, I guess what I was looking for in all of that was like, what is the mission statement? I know there's a charter and then there's like the description of the chaos, but what is the mission and how do values play into that? But maybe that's half baked. I don't think I'm ready to take it to the board, but I think that's maybe would be helpful when we get into values. Like at Mozilla, we have our mission. So for me, and we have an addendum that's about, the internet is open and accessible for all. So a lot of my work is really easy to drive under that umbrella. And so when I'm looking at the Linux Foundation or chaos, it's like, what is that values piece here? And I guess I pulled it out of the word community health, but maybe that's not the best way of deriving, right? So to your question about the board, if you think it's interesting, I can just pose that as a question, but I don't have an actual what proposal for what I think it should be at this point. Just so it would be helpful.
If you want to pose it as a question, just send it my way and I'll bring it forward. No problem there.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem. And it raises an interesting point too, because a lot of those documents that you're looking at, right, were created a year ago before working groups existed, and we were really just trying to get this off the ground. So I think it's high time to reflect on these documents.
Okay.
Really what that raised for me.
Awesome.
All right, cool. Well, we are at the top of the hour, so thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
See you next week.
Thank you.
Next week.
Yes, next week in Vancouver.
Right on. Bye everybody.
Yep, see you there.
Have fun there. Bye-bye.